Welcome to Beyond the Book, the only podcast where you get to talk about video games and pretend you're smart because you read books. We talk about international tournaments in the LoL Esports scene, League of Legends. We were talking about some of the teams and regions that were partaking in this international tournament, and letting them do a short story we were rather fond of, called God is Not a Fish Inspector by W.D Valgardson. I am your host, Chad the Chad Chadman. I'm joined by my good friend Zoro Scoro Boro, who's a bit of a noob, but he has some game sense, so we'll let him on. You know what? Today's episode is more about the teams at Worlds and the characters in GNFI, because you guys did not like that we skimmed over everything. Oof, yeah. I will admit we should probably clean up our format a bit. So, starting off with the most interesting region, to say the least, we're going to be talking about North America with TSM, Cloud9, and Immortals. So, Scoro, how do you think these teams did? What do you think is the character that they would most relate to? I mean, it's basically the same story as I said. First week they did relatively well, placing near the top of their bracket. And then second week NA curse strikes again. TSM goes 1-2, IMT goes 4 losses, 0 wins. Yeah, it was just really bad. C9 was pretty close to being like them. They just barely managed to get the last win they needed to get out. I'd guess they're kind of like the main character of GNFI. Yeah, what's his name again? Fuzi Bergson? No. Fuzi Bergman, yeah, Bergman. Yeah, I can see why you draw that conclusion, because you look at how they do, right? And it's like they try their hardest in week 1, and it's like, well, that wasn't so bad. We're pretty good. I think we'll really do good this time. And then they just take a beating in week 2 because they think it's going to get better for them. But they don't really put in that effort like the other teams do, you know? Yeah, I think you just kind of sum up NA from that one line about Fuzi. He didn't have to be fed or have a rubber diaper pinned around him each day. If anything, he became more cunning. Because, yeah, you don't know what changes the other teams will make to prepare for week 2. But you can't just assume you're going to adapt to everything they do within 30 minutes, right? You can't just assume you get better every year while every other team stays the same. Yeah, I totally agree with you, dude. It's pretty common, too. NA teams pull this fiasco every year, I heard. That 2-week curse and all. How about some of those other regions? You think any of them hold up to this beauty of NA? Oh boy, where do I even start? How about EU, Europe? Basically the antithesis of NA. They're kind of like your typical John Smith story. Everyone makes them sound like no big deal, they'll underperform their whole lives. But they kind of surprise everyone from out of nowhere, right? They're pretty humble too, just kind of getting pushed around by all the other teams. Then they become one of those higher members like John and becoming a preacher. There's like a hint of that one John Smith character's ascent to greatness from that one line. Encouraged by his silence. Oh yeah, no, that's a good one. A lot of those EU players talked about silencing the Chinese crowd this year, right? In Wuhan, China. It's like how they wanted to show up really hard, even against those Chinese teams on their home turf. You just gotta have respect for that, man. It's like no one expected anything out of them, but they really showed up. They told people what to expect, and they really delivered. Yeah, dude, now I'm struggling to find out who Flash Wolves, that Taiwanese team, and those wildcard teams are gonna end up being. Then I wrote over it one more time. They just hit me. They're Emma, dude. Emma? Fuzi's kid? How do you relate them to her? All she did was mess with Fuzi and stop him from following his dreams. Exactly! It's just like, you know how last game of Flash Wolves, they blocked TSM from getting out of groups. Just like how Emma blocked Fuzi from his dreams too. They were already out of groups, but they just still played their last game just to make sure TSM was going to have a tough time. Ah, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and those wildcards also do that to NA, right? The minor regions like Vietnam, Turkey. Yeah, like that one team, Gigabyte Marines, they did that to NA this year too, and it's happened in the past too to other teams that were unfortunately unable to make it this year. Yeah, man. You know what the Koreans are? Oh yeah, what are they, man? They're the fish inspectors. Now I know what you're thinking, and no, I'm not going crazy. You know how the fish inspectors are kind of like this almighty power that Fuzi tried to avoid? Well, NA keeps trying to avoid the Koreans. You remember how happy TSM was to be in a group that had no Korean team in it? Yeah, like that one line. He said you couldn't do any harm with one net.